is running up here, spilling his coffee, and here comes Katie with a cup of coffee. Everybody got coffee but Michael. All right. Well, Michael had enough coffee. Oh, I hate it when you do that crying stuff. She does it. I'm going to do it back to you, Kate. Kate and I have been working together a long time, and we know each other's sounds. And I want to just say one thing about Twin Peaks. One of the other radio stations they appeared on was WZRD. And I was talking to a woman named Kathleen who runs the Beach Poets, and she will be on the show next week. And she also, starting on Sunday at noon down at Loyola Beach, right next to the Heartland Stand in the Sand, they do the Beach Poets. And she's been doing it since like 90, 91. And one of the things that she talked to me about, which was very hard to hear, was that yesterday the student activities of Northeastern Illinois University called in all of the radio station people from WZRD, and this has been a truly community radio station for many years, and announced that everything was done, it was over, it was canceled, and now they're going to be playing the iTunes robo list. So we'll have more on that next week. It's breaking news. I've gotten emails from a couple of people. I've contacted Danielle, our station manager, to see what she knows about it. The request that I got was that people start to contact the president of the university out there. This would be truly a loss. And I've been listening to ZRD since the 70s. We even had a Rising Up Angry show for a while. But it's been community music, Democracy Now!, Free Speech Radio, all of these shows that you really can't find too many places on air, but thank God for the online, are no longer going to be heard on WZRD unless there's a massive revolt. Okay, so that's that.
You know what used to be true of Wizard? Nobody said their names. WZRD used to be just people would play these great sets of music, and it'd be the whatever show, but they didn't make it ego contained. So anyway,
I remember
I'm
that
Katie,
from my
and this
youth.
is Michael.
I like the ego myself. My name is Michael James, and I'm related to the Katie and Twin Peaks.
And we have, as Michael said, a good friend on stage with us, and his beautiful partner and daughter in the audience, Rus Bradburn. Hi, Russ.
Good morning, Russ.
Good to be here. Hey, I had the eggs Florentine. It was fabulous.
I love the eggs.
Oh, that's good. You know, I've never had the eggs Florentine. It's a little too foo-foo sounding for me. You know, I says, give me some organic eggs over medium and some bacon with a slice of avocado.
Honestly, the smell of bacon in front of this place today was outrageous. It made you want to come in and buy some.
Well, I could see that everyone followed that instinct. We are glad to have Coach Rus Bradburn, also writer Rus Bradburn. Some of you have heard Rus before. You can find earlier editions of Live from the Heartland with prominent interviews with Rus. And he's a good friend. We got to know him, I think, through our old buddy Bob Rudnick in the old days. And Rus is a big fan of the Heartland 3 Scoops, which sometimes is on the menu, sometimes it's not, but you can always get it. It's tuna, avocado, and hummus. And but you had eggs Florentine today, no 3 Scoops.
It was terrific, and the food's always good here.
That's good to hear. Rus did a lot of coaching. He was a coach at UTEP. He was a coach at New Mexico State. He's a basketball man. He's probably the best dribbler in the world. Sean Battier, who was now one of the champion Miami Heats, did some special tutoring with Rus on his dribbling a few years back. But Rus has turned more to writing. He has a book out called Paddy on the Hardwood. He has another book out called 40 Minutes of Hell about Nolan Richardson, the great basketball coach out of Arkansas. And you have a new book, Rus, coming out. What is that all about?
Well, it's a book of fiction, Mike. It's my first book of fiction. It'll be out in January, so we're way ahead of promotion schedule.
This is the early promo.
That's right. But it's called Make It, Take It. It's a sort of a linked story collection, kind of a novel in stories. It takes place at a fictional university, but rather than kind of the typical condemnation of college sports, which needs condemnation, there's no question about it, but it's more of a...
And you're a good guy to do it.
Sort of an examination of, the conflicts and the human heart and the decisions that get made at that level. Much more of a human story than it's not a lesson for anybody.
And that'll be out from Cinco Puntos Press?
Yes, Cinco Puntos is the same. It's the same press that first did Dagoberto Gilb's short stories, and Luis Urea, who teaches at UIC now, the great fiction, nonfiction poet Luis Alberto Urea.
You know, I actually have the video and recording of when he came up and we had a session over at the No Exit. And I've got to get Paul Wozniak to look at that and see if we can get some of that up. Actually, he's had a couple books out and there's some movies out. Do you know? Can you give me any details on that?
Well, The Devil's Highway is sort of a classic. It's a book about border crossing that gets taught in all this. You know, look at us. We're talking about Luis Urea's books, but his books are far better than mine. And he does. But his book is sort of a classic and gets taught at a lot of universities around. You know, about crossing the border in the Arizona desert. He went down and crossed.
Doesn't he have one out of something Hummingbird?
The Hummingbird's Daughter. There's a novel about his great-grandmother, I think, was sort of this healer in Juarez, Mexico, but was friends with Pancho Villa, and was sort of the spiritual advisor to a lot of these guys involved in the Mexican Revolution.
Okay, Pancho Villa is officially the theme of today's show.
All right.
2 different guests, absolutely no connection, and we've brought him up twice.
Who knew?
Well, speaking of Pancho Villa, who was one of the leaders of the Mexican Revolution back in the early part of the 19th century. A lot of those battles were actually fought in and around Juarez. You could watch the battles in Juarez from the El Paso side up on top of a hotel.
Jeez.
And Russ, you spent a lot of time down there. I've been down there a lot. We do this basketball in the Barrio Camp.
Did you just come back?
And you're just back from it. How was camp?
That's right. We basketball in the Barrio was it was our 17th or 18th year, I think, this year. It's a great camp, Michael. You talk about without ego. It's all it's for kids 6 to 10 years old, and it's boys and girls. And for $1, every kid gets a T-shirt like this beautiful one you're seeing here, basketball, a peace poster made by Lester Doré. Lester Doré, your friend that you connected me to, and a bilingual children's book.
Wow.
So, and if you win a special award, you get 2 books.
What was the highlight of this year's basketball in the Barrio? Because for the 2nd year in a row, I didn't go, but I am committed to going next year.
Well, there's a great folklorico dancers.
82.
You know, we only do about 1/3 basketball, and the rest is sort of educational. But the folklorico dancers this year were just amazing. Just so colorful with their, and the kids are very into it. So we had we've decided maybe next year we'll do a dance station. Rather than just we do basketball and education, but maybe a dance.
Be careful, it'll take over the b-ball.
Oh, is that right?
Well,
I think you're going to get
dancing?
Twin Peaks down there next year.
I don't know. I like Twin Peaks. I saw them at Murders.
Tex-Mex music. Oh my gosh.
One of the things that I always looked forward to when I would go to basketball in the Barrio, and I went down there probably, I don't know, was it the late 1990s or was it 2000?
Whatever.
Been there a lot of times, and we used to every Saturday, Friday and Saturday after the camp was over, we would all head across the border. And I noticed 2 years ago when I was down there that there was a sort of a hiatus in that plan, that a lot of people weren't wanting to go across the border. And we've seen, like on National Public TV, what do they call it, PBC? Public Broadcasting. They've been doing stories on the Mexican election, and they actually did a story on Juarez last night. The border's gotten pretty rough. The drug war in Juarez is significant. What's your take on the border, having just been there?
Well, I'm no expert, Michael, but I have lived down there for 20 years, and it's the war for drugs. It's the cartels battling for control. The police are backing one cartel. The federal army is backing another cartel. And
you're kidding? Is that right?
That's fairly
Pretty
common knowledge. That's what the best journalist to read, the best writer on Juarez is Charles Bowden, Bowden, and his book Murder City is an amazing book. But many of the leading writers on the subject understand that it is the war for drugs, and there's now a push, even from the El Paso side, to legalize marijuana. Beto O'Rourke, who's going to be running he just unseated Sylvester Reyes in the Democratic primary. It was part of his platform, and he's written a book about legalizing.
For what office is he running?
He's running for Congress.
But he was a city councilman in Juarez.
Yes, and he beat Sylvester Reyes a month or two ago. Yes, and so. And they haven't had a Republican, so he's won the Democratic nomination. He's not exactly a shoo-in for the office, but he's probably going to win that election.
This is good news, right?
I think so.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
And although Reyes voted against the war, he was one of the few to vote against the war. So I had mixed feelings about it because if you're going to give a congressman credit for anything these days, voting against the war still goes a long way with me.
Sure.
But
So unfortunately, it's not replacing a Tea Party member.
well, I don't know, but there is a push from both sides in El Paso now, from both conservatives and progressives to legalize marijuana, and they estimate that 70 to 80% of what the drug war in Mexico is being fought over, and it's 3,000 people are being killed a year. It's been 8 murders a day until fairly recently. Now it's down to 1 or 2 murders a day, which seems like some kind of acceptable level to some people. But
like Chicago.
Experts on every side of the issue think that by legalizing marijuana, that the price would plummet and the violence would plummet.
You think so?
I'm certain, and
Yeah.
there would be other. Is it a perfect solution? No, it's not a perfect solution. But in our part of the world, the war on drugs is an utter and total failure.
Totally.
And there's nowhere, as Charles Bowden says, there's nowhere in America today where people are saying, I can't get any pot. The pot that just hasn't that you will never stop that shipment, and it's a foolish waste of money and resources.
No, now it's a big agricultural product here in this country too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we noticed that it just got decriminalized here in the city.
Here in Chicago
and,
this week.
You know, you got medical marijuana up in Michigan. There are significant changes taking place. I know there is some kind of an event tonight for National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws somewhere here in Chicago. You'd have to look that up because I don't have the details.
That'd be normal, NORML.
Yep.
But I wanted to, Katie said, how did you mentioned that we met through Righteous Bob Rudnick.
Yeah, I wanted to.
And my brother had was roommates with Bob Rudnick for a couple years.
What was your
Rudnick
brother's
was
name?
a pioneer in
Radio.
sort of hip radio. He was on, I forget the station, but it was Howlin' at the Moon
Howlin'
was
at
an
the
early
Moon.
show.
It might have been ZRD.
No, it wasn't. It was
But
another.
also in Detroit, I think he was big in Detroit for
Well,
a
he
while.
came out of the White Panther Party.
Yeah, he was one of the first FM DJs, and so he was also a poet. And when my brother has mentioned to Bob that I was interested in trying to be a writer, he said, "Well, you ought to write something for Mike James in the Heartland Journal."
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I remember now.
So Bob Rudnick, who rest in peace, Bob
God love him.
bread in heaven to him, as you Irish
He was
say.
a waiter here.
So
One
he
of
was
the
the one that.
funniest waiters ever in the world.
I'm sure he was a terrible waiter, but he was a great guy.
He disappeared one time. He was getting a tip outside with some lady.
But he was also a wonderful poet. And so
He wrote a great thing about Comiskey Park.
Yeah.
And we'll have to pull that out and frame it.
yeah.
We've got
What did you write for us, Russ? What was your first article?
Well, it was about. I think it was called "The New Slavery," about how college
review of that
athletics.
book?
How college athletics is now sort of the coaches are making $1 million a year, but the players haven't gotten a raise in 80 years. The players get room, board, tuition, and books, and the coaches used to make about what a professor made, but now the coaches are making in the millions, and the players still get the same. It's a huge labor scam.
There is a book on basketball as slavery by Rodin, I think, the guy from the New York Times. Because I know the topic came up about athletes as slaves on what's that other radio station that's on our stuff early in the morning?
on our stuff.
On our station.
Duh. You mean Democracy Now?
No, it's oh, geez, I'm so sorry. My daughter Koya is actually one of the commentators, but I can't remember.
Write things down, Michael.
It happens when you're
That's
old.
all I can say.
Yeah. But in any
Russ.
case,
Yeah, go ahead.
in any case, it was Rudnick that brought us together, and
What a wonderful
it's a strange
connection to
coincidence. Yeah,
have.
strange
Well,
coincidence.
Russ, one of the other things that I always like you to share with us is your take on Ireland. And I know you and your lovely wife, Connie Wazine, and your daughter, Alma, spent a good portion of the last, winter and spring over there. Connie had some kind of big award, and she was taking classes or writing or something.
That's
Tell
right.
us about Ireland these days.
Well, my wife is the poet, Connie Voisine, the award-winning poet.
I know.
And she won a Fulbright.
With tenure, too.
And I got a half-bright. And we were in Belfast for 6 months. And it was fairly calm. I mean, the town is still very divided along, Protestant, Catholic, what they call sectarian lines. And the schools are still segregated. But there hasn't been a sectarian carrying killing in years now, and so it seemed totally safe. It seemed, but it seemed like a completely safe and lovely town, except for that there's only a few neighborhoods that are integrated. And we lived in one of them near the university. It was
integrated with who?
Protestant Catholic. Protestant and Catholic. And so there's still that. But the other day, Martin McGuinness, who used to be the sort of the head of the War Council for the IRA, shook hands with the Queen, which is a huge step for both sides.
It was a short, quick shake.
I imagine there wasn't a hug. It wasn't a hug, and there'd be people upset about that on both sides. But things are slowly moving in the right direction. It's been very slow, but it's easy for us Americans go over there and want to solve all their problems, forgetting that we were the ones that took land from the Indians and enslaved African people and those kinds of things. Like we have all the solutions to the Northern Ireland problem, but it is an interesting problem because you can't tell from a fellow walking down the street if he's Catholic or Protestant. When
I was there last, which was when you were coaching the Tralee Tigers and they won the Irish Professional Basketball League championship, I was really impressed with diversity in Ireland. There were like people from all over the world, and it seemed like Ireland was going out of its way to be really compassionate and concerned with people everywhere. It was really quite amazing when I think about some of the way I used to think about racism in Irish guys here in Chicago. But what I understand is that the economy has sort of shifted and that a lot of people from other countries have left.
That's right, and I think it's one of the things that there's not as much talk now about a united Ireland because the economy in the north is better than the economy in the Free State, and so there's not quite that push now, and I think it sort of has stalled the Sinn Féin kind of idea of a united Ireland because now they're hesitant to tie their tie their ship onto another ship that's sinking.
Well, you mean the north?
The economy in Northern Ireland is far better than in Ireland, and so there is that hesitancy. But it's an interesting place, and the history, unlike their history is so in your face and so recent. Every person I'd met, after you get to know them, they have a story about the IRA did this. Or when the Loyalists did that. I got to be friends with a guy named Dave Cullen who started Peace Players, where they'd get Protestant and Catholic kids to play basketball together. And after I knew him for a few weeks, he told me that his own father had been murdered by Loyalists back when he was 4 years old.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of people there whose lives have been affected by it, either directly or indirectly.
Real quickly, Russ, you're a fiddle player. You enhanced that skill over there in Ireland a few times now. Tell us where you play, what scenes there are that you play at around town.
Well, I always come to the Heartland for breakfast, but at Tommy Nevin's pub in Evanston on Sundays, and the Grafton and Chief O'Neill's and the Abbey and those kinds of places.
I'm going to be going with you. Check it out.
All right,
so
good.
I can then recruit some people to play over here.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'd like to ask you about is your friend John Conroy, who was the guy who really broke the John Birch story, has a new play. I sent after you invited me to go see it, which I hope we can do. I wrote to John and asked him to come on the show, so I'm putting that out over the airwaves. But tell us briefly about that play.
Well, it's an amazing play, and I told John Conroy when I saw him after the play, I said, it's about police torture the way Moby Dick is about fishing. It's not, there's police torture's in the background, but it's really, it's an amazing play, and it's not a judgment on, we all know torture bad, right? And brutal cops bad.
Name of the play?
It's My Kind of Town, which is
playing at?
Well, it's down on, let me think, it's down on Wellington near...
it's the Wellington Avenue Church, probably.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, yes.
Wait,
okay, we're out of time. We got a couple quick announcements.
Russ, are you guys back in Chicago for...
That's it, till mid-August.
All right, great.
All right, so there's a radio show called Rag Radio out of Austin, Texas. It's a sister station or a show of ours. I want you to check them out. The Farmers Market will be here on Glenwood Avenue tomorrow. The Heartland Cafe is going to be open on the 4th. I want to thank everyone who made this show possible. I give a long list of names, but there's too many of us now. So do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do. For Katie Hogan, this is Michael James, and I are saying do good in the world. The world needs all the world that you do. All power to the people, over and out.